Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and yeah, we've got Old World rules. Finally, we've actually getting a first look at Warhammer The Old World. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to read over them. I am super excited, as you can tell. The bastionets have been polished, the arrows fletched, the desert dust blown out of the crevices, and Warhammer The Old World is nearing release in early 2024. Some really cool artwork of goblins fighting against high elves, which is interesting because they used to have the fear high elves rule. Well, they may do still. As the Warhammer Design Studio unrolls the last of the Green Flock, oh god, it's so nice to hear Green Flock again, it's time for us to start taking a longer look at the actual rules of the game in a new series of articles in the run-up to release. Okay, so this means that it's going to be coming fairly often, articles. Oh, I'm so happy. Okay, so today the Old World Almanac looks at the basic structure of the game and the first main phase, the strategy phase. Okay, let's jump in. Alright, so we're going to talk about game structure first. Warhammer The Old World is a new game designed from the ground up to simulate large regiments meeting in combat as volleys of arrows and artillery shot soar overhead, and cavalry, wizards, heroes, and monsters crash into combat all around. Okay, so they say large regiments. I'm expecting a large deployment. We know now that the Bretonnian archers, for example, is going to be in a box of 32, but apparently that can make 2 regiments. So, yeah, okay, fairly good so far. Let's continue. That's not to say that it hasn't taken plenty of inspiration from what came before it, including several popular editions of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Much of the complexity has been kept, thank you, and particularly regarding morale added, okay. But a lot of thought has been put into the structure of the phases, in particular when units and characters might use their abilities. So we've got a turn sequence here. The strategy phase is 1. During the strategy phase, the active player attempts to cast enhancement or hex spells and makes use of certain special rules before attempting to rally any fleeing units. Okay, this is pretty interesting. Big changes, obviously, that we had magic prior, which was everything, but magic, as we know, has been split into different areas. The movement phase, as per usual. The movement phase starts with the declaration of charges, as yeah, usually that was at the beginning, but I guess this allows you to be able to think up a little bit differently, just in case certain spells don't go through. Then the movement of charging units. After this comes compulsory movement. Finally, any remaining movement is carried out, and conveyance spells are cast. Okay, so they're splitting up all the spells. We can actually see this throughout all the different phases. Then the shooting phase. During the shooting phase, the active player shoots with those units in their army armed with missile weapons, with their war machines, and attempts to cast magic missile and magical vortex spells. I wonder how this is going to work for magic overall. I haven't read the article yet, obviously. I'm just going as we're going there, because it does seem like spells might be easier to cast in general. And then finally the combat phase, which is the one that we all know, right? So during this phase, units fight in deadly hand-to-hand melee, and wizards attempt to fend off their attackers with assailment spells. Okay, so they've really split up magic quite heavily. This is going to require me to do a little bit of research. Units that have lost combat may be driven back or become broken and flee, so it's both. Okay, so we've heard rumors that it was just going to be driven back, but it does seem like both options are there. At the end of the phase, once all combats have been resolved, the active player's turn ends, and yeah, then that means that it goes to the next one. So for example, if you started off the game, you'd be active player 1, and then there'd be active player 2. Yep, so far, very, very happy. Okay, so we have a little bit more information here. Warhammer The Old World is a game of rounds and turns. Each game is broken down into a number of rounds. During each round, both players will take a turn, each of which is broken down into 4 main phases. The strategy phase, okay, we already know this because we've read it before. I do wonder how many turns we're going to get. So on average, Warhammer Fantasy was around 6 turns, but it does seem like they're going to make combat last longer, so maybe they might try to push it to maybe 7 or 8 turns, or it could depend on the actual map deployment, because we know that there were certain cases where turns would be different. But yeah, so far so good. Very, very happy. Alright, so this blog is just going to be focusing on the strategy phase, which makes sense. I must say also the little artwork that we're able to see, like actual stuff that we're going to be seeing in rulebooks and just in general, like you can see these trolls fighting the Imperials. It's so old school Warhammer style. I love this so much. But yeah, let's talk. We begin with the start of turn subphase, which is when certain units perform special actions or take tests. These aren't common, and their details will be clearly stated in their rules. For example, okay, stone trolls would take their stupidity test. Stupidity remains a thing. Not sure what I think about that, considering rat ogres were super useless, but why not? And it's also when Night Goblin fanatics are placed on the table. Okay, well, it's nice to hear that old school rules are still remaining, and obviously fanatics are still in game. Additionally, a particular scenario may require you to check whether a victory condition has been met at this point. You may also use this period to tidy the table, removing stray casualties and errant dice. Perfect. Yeah, love this. Okay, so you don't get rid of casualties too much? I don't know. I don't know what that means, though. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. The second subphase is more exciting. Command. This is where most character special rules fire off. For instance, a Bretonnian lord brandishing the falcon horn of Fredmund may blow it in the command subphase, hopefully preventing opponents from being able to fly. Okay. Very, very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Mostly because it's cool to see some interesting items come into effect. We get a little bit of detail here too with the lore. Oh, I'm so happy about that. So the falcon horn or Fredmund. This ancient horn was used by the Grell companion Duke Fredmund of Aquitaine. When blown, it emits a piercing cry and the skies become filled with flocks of hunting birds. During the command subphase of their turn, if they are not engaged in combat, this character may attempt to use the Falcon Horn of Fredmund by making a leadership test using their own unmodified leadership. If this test is passed, for the next turn subphase, enemy units cannot use the fly special rule. Okay, this will actually be quite good if you're dealing with, say, vampire counts, which have like a lot of, bats and stuff. Hell, Wood Elves had a few flyers and so on. Beastmen did too. Or if you fight against Demons of Tzeentch, which have a fair amount of flyers, this is going to be quite interesting to see on the table. I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. And then we get a little bit of information with magic. Where would Warhammer be without magic? You'll notice that there's no magic phase in the game. Instead, magical powers and spells are cast during the relevant phases. Hand of Mork or Gork is a conveyance spell, which means it's cast in the movement phase, for instance. However, the third step of the strategy phase is Conjuration, which is when you cast enchantments, magical boosts for your allies, or hexers, magical penalties for your enemies. Players take it in turns during this step to choose wizards who aren't fleeing to attempt to cast spells. The Tomb Kings, for instance, might choose to cast Jaff's Incantation of Cursed Blades from the lore Nehekara. What's the casting value? We'll go into more detail on magic during another article. Why do they have to? Why are they doing this? I hate when they tease. I get it. It's likely going to be the same way as Age of Sigmar does it, where you don't really have like a pool of magical dice. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to hear that certain spells are coming back, right? Specifically, it does say players take it in turns during this step to choose wizards who aren't fleeing to attempt to cast spells. Does that mean that enemy wizards will also be able to use incantations to protect themselves? I don't know. It's going to be curious. Again, we need more context. So Jaff's Incantation of Cursed Blades is as follows. As the Lich Priest utters this most ancient mantra, the weapons of the Nehekaran warriors gathered about them become imbued with the essence of Jaff, the jackal-headed god of the dead, who hungers for the souls of the living above all things. So, type, enchantment. So we're going to see type there clearly done. The casting value is 7+. Again, I want to know how this is going to work. Range is obviously on self, and the effect is as follows. Until your next start of turn subphase, any friendly unit that has the Nehekaran Undead special rule, and that is within the caster's command range. Okay, I want to know what the command range is, because it used to be like, depending on your mount, you might have a bigger one. Hopefully it's the same, but you may reroll any rolls to hit of a natural 1. Okay, yeah, re-rolling ones. Great, that's perfect. That's actually not too bad, because ones are so common, you'd be surprised, especially if you're going to have like a big death squad, and we've seen more or less how squads are going to be through various different pictures, so I imagine ones are going to be common. Okay, so we have a little bit more information. The final step in this phase is rally fleeing troops. This is when the active player must attempt to rally all of their units that are fleeing. To take a rally test, choose a unit and roll 2 dice against its leadership characteristic. If you fail, it will continue to flee during the movement phase. If you pass, your unit is allowed a free reform, move, and returns to the fray. Okay, yeah, I mean, this is very much like how it used to be. but we'll continue here. We'll have more on morale in a later article too, but please bear in mind that if your unit is under half strength, it gets a -1 modifier to its leadership when attempting to reply. Under 25%, and you'll need to roll a natural double 1. Yeah, okay, kind of very much the same, except for the original modifier, but it's good to see that this returns. It's going to be better. I'm just a little bit concerned to see how it's going to work, because obviously Warhammer Fantasy did have a lot of issues with gotcha moments, which funny enough, I was talking to someone about it a little bit earlier today, but yeah, I mean, this is going to be cool. And a little bit more information here. There's a lot more to clue you in for Warhammer The Old World in the coming months. We'll be tackling the rest of the phases, plus rules for magic, morale, psychology, and other matters. And we'll also be taking a closer look at the factions, the setting, the models, and the future of the game, only here on WarhammerCommunity.com. Okay, this is great. This is great. So, future. This means that they've already got plans for, like, a second edition. I am over the moon. I am over the freaking moon. You guys have no idea how excited I've been for this. Oh, wow. What do you guys think about this? This is great. I'm already imagining that the certain groups on Facebook for the Old World are complaining, but this is phenomenal for me. I'm super happy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Start a bit of a discussion. I might go live later on twitch.tv/thegreatbookofgrudges, and we could discuss this a little bit more, because I'm super hyped up. But until then, yeah, guys, have a good day. I'll see you all again very, very soon.